I'd like to spend a few minutes and talk about strategy ownership, some thoughts on how to ensure things actually get done or don't get done, depending upon how you approach them. In the last several videos, I've presented a foundation for what the components of relationship models are and how to go about developing them. And I've then used that foundation to create this relationship model about the difficulties being experienced by a high-tech startup suffering from its own success. And then from there to develop a strategy about how to go about dealing with that predicament that they have created. Now, there are several ways that I could go about doing this. I could develop this relationship model and a strategy, and I could come to you and I could say, this is the answer and this is what you should do. In the process of doing that, am I not simply essentially discounting you and telling you that I'm far smarter than you are and you should do exactly what I tell you to do? The question is, how much of what I have to say are you willing to listen to right after I tell you you're stupid? And the answer is probably not much. So if I were to do this on my own, I would essentially consider it homework. In working through the relationships to develop a better understanding on my part so that I could go to other people in sales and support and staffing and say, here's what I've been thinking about, and can you help me better understand this aspect of these relationships? I am essentially giving them an opportunity to buy into what's being developed or participate in its development so that you're giving them an opportunity to contribute and feel good about that contribution so that they have some sense of connection with what's being developed. Even better yet is to actually have them get together with individuals from the various segments of the organization that have the power, authority, and influence over the various segments of the relationship model, who are in a position to do something about the relationships that are part of the problem and actually facilitate them to develop the model. In that instance also, I would have developed this and the associated strategy as homework, and I would have then thrown it away and never let anybody see it because it's my answer, it's not the organization's answer. I found out long ago that if you really want the organization to act upon something, they have to believe that they own it. It's their own understanding of what they need to do. Now, that's not to say that they will always do that, though there is a greater likelihood that the organization will act upon its own intent than someone else's. I ask, or I provide the thought on an ongoing basis that it's a question of ownership. How many people do you know that actually wash their rental cars? Not very many, because they don't own them. Of course, there are lots of people that don't wash their own cars. So there's a greater difficulty in doing this with a group of individuals who don't have extensive experience in developing relationship models. The biggest difficulty I find is they want to include everything in the relationship model because everything is connected to everything else, and they end up with a complicated mess that's simply not actionable. It takes real effort to get them to realize that certain things just need to be left out because they complicate the environment, and what they end up with isn't actionable. It needs to be pared down through successive iterations to what the real relevant relationships are that have an influence on the current situation and provide a basis for figuring out how to deal with it. So there's some thoughts from my perspective on how to use relationship models in a meaningful manner and a not so meaningful manner. And I also say that relationship models can be a real sound basis for developing understanding to a point. It's good to realize that they are a static piece of paper. Once you get to a point of asking questions such as how much or how long or when, the only thing that's going to get you closer to the understanding you're looking for is developing a real simulation model, wherein every one of the relationships actually has formulas associated with it, and the simulation will simply play out those relationships over time to show you the implications of those relationships, as opposed to simply sitting here looking at a picture, attempting to perceive the implications of those relationships over time. So, hope you found this meaningful, and I'll see you in another video soon. Bye.